So, coming over with Pauline, I had to refresh her memory. So let's see how much anybody's memory has to be refreshed about what we did 2 weeks ago. 48 Ways is a system of human growth, achieving the maximum potential and your greatest achievements, becoming happier and more successful, and really putting it together, and subdivided into 8 dimensions of what makes the person tick. The very first dimension we talked about is the dimension of the intellect, of the thinking, and that is the very foundation of all humanity, as vis-a-vis using that in an animal. We think. So by thinking, therefore, we have disciplines, how to think properly, discern right from wrong, so that this way we can really move forward with what's proper in our lives and make ample decisions on all situations facing us and in all opportunities that are presented to us. I've always had a belief in opportunities. I learned that belief from playing gin rummy. You ever play gin rummy? Right, 10 cards. Got to win. You have to 4, 3, and 3. Whoever gets 4, 3, and 3 wins, right? Right. That's how you play it. So when you're playing a game, isn't it so that you have to turn over a card and then see if you want it or not, if it fits into your scheme of things. Well, you can say, well, I like this card, it's going to help me get this straight, or this number of 4 3s, or 1 2 3 4s, or whatever. Or you can discard the card and say, it's not going to be no use to me. At the beginning of the game, my belief was always, and it's the same way I've said it earlier, always be open to every opportunity. Pick up every card. Don't turn the card away. That's absolutely, totally, out of the picture. Because you never know. You got 1 3, you pick up a second 3, what for? And all of a sudden 2 more 3s show right up. Seize the opportunity, seize the moment. So that's the idea of the being open to things, and in being open to things, let's say the same thing with job offers, you never know. I mean, this guy says something, that guy says something. Well, I'm not. Wait a second, hold it. Maybe, listen, there might be something to that. At the end, you decide no, but at least you're hearing it, you're open to it. That's what I'm talking about, opening your mind, being thinking, and that really is the gateway to success. The next step was called the social way, in which people need to work with each other, get along with each other, on an intimate level, on a more distant level, on a more frequent level, less frequent level, what's proper, appropriate social norms, courtesy, respect, niceness to people, not being rude to people, and at the same time, how do we maximize relationships that are closer, which are far more intense by definition. People who are closer to each other have more difficulty getting along with people that are not. Why is that so? You know why? Because we expect more of the people that are closest to us. If we have less expectations, we get along just as good. It's a funny thing that way, All of a sudden, a person gets into a fight with his wife. All of a sudden, he gets a phone call from some guy, and he meets her every once in a while. How are things going? How do you switch that quick? Amazing. Because it doesn't matter that much, but your wife matters. So that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of intimate relationships being very, very demanding, and sometimes tougher. In fact, we saw a humorous thing was about this relationship that this couple had. It was they really were deeply in love. It was an amazing thing. And the poor guy, and the guy says, I've never been more miserable in my life. And she says, me ditto. I've never been more miserable in my life. I love you so much, and we love each other so much. It's miserable. And that's the way it is. But you have to try to reduce the misery and learn how to do that. Anyway, social norms are really very important in moving forward because at the end of the day, we live with people. If you decide not to, you decide to be a hermit or stay single or whatever, you cannot ever grow. I mean, for whatever you've developed, that's it. You're stymied. You're stopped. The sharing of ideas out there is the most important thing, particularly if, really, really top-notch lecturers, top-notch people who you want to be in touch with or hear from. I thank God today we have the such a explosion of opportunity, technologically. You don't have to go to New York to hear this great speaker. You can you get them online or whatever. The point is that online. Great speaker. But point is that that's the sharing of ideas, the promoting of ideas, the introduction to new ideas. So socially, you have to have that discipline to be able to really move forward. And we third that the third one, of course, was your education. And education basically was to go into a situation where there was intensive learning. Intensive learning meant no distractions. The kind of program, let's say, that a yeshiva has, where there is no other, nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. So you got to do is get up in the morning, go to davening, go to learn, go to dinners, go to breakfast, go to lunch, go to sleep. I mean, your whole life is in learning. So that's an amazing experience. But now, sure, there are social parts of it too, of course, but the whole idea of maximizing all that kind of time into learning is the kind of atmosphere that's created that's so totally committed that, I mean, you find people that scholars, for instance, have nothing to talk about in conversation except learning, information, knowledge. They're just not talking about any of the nonsense in the world. So that's when you're really, getting an intensive education to maximize your thinking process, to maximize your social setting, which the yeshiva is, and that's how you get the good education. Then we talked about the idea that life, let's say, presents challenges to these growths. I mean, you can say, but this is the growth. Think, get along, get an education. I mean, that's how people get ahead in life, right? But we say that the 48 Ways teaching from the Torah that there are issues that stand in your way. Well, one of the issues that stand in your way is the physical challenges of life. Physical challenges of life do involve health disciplines, because when these disciplines are abused or violated or abstained from, then of course you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. Money is an issue. Without it, you can't buy health insurance. With it, it's great. But abuse it and have much more of it, and all of a sudden you're exploiting and having all this other things that you're spending money on that you should not be spending it on, and seeking out all sorts of pleasures, which in fact are going to come back to haunt you. And in itself, the pursuit of money makes people intense and angry. Thank you, and angry and I mean, they say that the people who have lots of money have volatile tempers. And I think Trump is known for you're fired. I mean, so you gotta have this be able to control it, and that's the whole idea. When the 40 Ways said moderation meant control. So let's say food was the issue, is obesity versus anorexia. So we said that the concept would be that a person would learn how to control that by knowing when to indulge and when not to. Purim, Shabbos, Yontif, enjoy. Have a nice meal. I mean, I was mentioning the fact that where I go to my rehab, all the goyim there were all excited around November time. I was spending about a month preparing for Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm cooking this, and I'm cooking that, and I'm cooking this, and I'm cooking that, and I got to do this and do that. Hey, we do this every Friday night. I mean, this is but the point is that there is a sense of control when you do have the ability to enjoy the pleasure. But breeds control where you can say no, such as the non-kosher, such as on Yom Kippur, such as the bread on Pesach. So it's control, really. That's the name of the game. Certainly, control would be, for instance, a person would have a beautiful meal place in front of him, but not to take too heavy a plate or too large a plate, and maybe to stop when you feel full, even though it still looks scrumptious on the plate, and to have that kind of control that says I'm in control. And you'd avoid something like this, So you have to have that realization that it's a health issue. And physical matters include the health issue to the extent where you want to be healthy, you want to, again, maximize this pleasure that God has given us, but maximize it in a way where you know when to put it on, when to use it, when to stop. And that goes for relationships and for sex and things of that nature, for sleep, all forms of physical pleasures, which limited or defined and controlled are magnificent and beautiful. Abstain from nothing. I mean, a good, healthy relationship between husband and wife empowers a person to feel, to live life to its fullest. I remember my Rebbe was saying he had a group of very, very skeptical people, very modern people, very free people. So he was talking about this issue of derech eretz, of sex, and he said, "You guys think you got good sex? I got 12 kids." Whoa! Look at this guy. So, the idea is that how it's done properly and beautifully and empowering and really engendering a beautiful family and that kind of connection that two people have with each other. On the other hand, if it's abstained from, there's none of that. There's none of that strength at all. And if it's abused and not disciplined and not limited to the times that it should be limited, particularly during the Nida period, so then obviously there's going to be that kind of what's it called? Familiarity, and too much of something is no good. Familiarity breeds contempt, and that kind of awareness of healthy sexual life. Of course, we've learned today in our own world about how many diseases are by all these free people, and of course, these free people have led to all these sorts of scandals and so forth, and it's affected the health of many. So this is the physical issues when we talked about it in terms of money and food and sex and sleep and stuff like that. And now we talk about the next impediment. If you are in control, as the 40 way suggests, and moderating properly with moderation, miyut, limitation, so then the next step is the next challenge that people will face in life, and we all face it, by the way, is mental health. The mental health issue is an issue that is not regulated to the people that are in insane asylums. We're all a little cuckoo. In fact, I'll teach you a blockism. We're all nuts. I maintain it, I'm convinced of it. Every one of us is crazy. The difference between the functionally fit and the clinically insane, the clinically insane don't know it. The functionally fit do. I know I'm crazy, therefore I'm normal. Someone comes up to me and tells me, I'm absolutely, totally, that guy's nuts. Watch out for that guy. Watch out for that guy. Because he's clueless. It's all about being clued in. Why is that so? Because the idea is, again, to be empowered to live life to its fullest, and then to be open-minded thinking and considering and really getting into things that are on its truest level. But if something impedes you, you can't do that. Those physical challenges can impede you, can stop you. Alcoholism can kill you. It can reduce you from all you've accomplished. You have a beautiful family and then you threw it away because of alcoholism. So the idea is that mental health can do the same thing. Maybe even more dangerous. Mental health can be the kind of thing, the kind of affliction that, well, if it's really deep, then you don't know it. Then you're really in trouble. But if you're, thank God, fortunate enough to know that you've got a problem and you seek out professional help, you can move forward. But you realize that you must, because why? Because if you don't, your mind is captured. And when it's captured, it can't think. It can't make the right decisions. It can't make the right moves. Sometimes it makes no moves at all and puts a person in a situation where almost they're frozen, God forbid. They don't know what to say or what to do. They're scared, so to speak. So there are 4 such things that we have here, and we'll discuss them to some degree. These 4 things are, I think, probably the 4 most basic challenges we have on a mental level. And they are as follows. The first one is called, now what I'm going to tell you here is the opposite of the problem. Is the rectification of the problem. So the first problem that's rectified is, the rectification is called patience. You figure out the problem. The next one is called good heart. You figure out the problem. The good heart is solving. The next one is called listen to, follow, and believe in the elders, scholars, and the wise men. And the last one is accepting suffering. So it's cryptic and it's not self-explanatory. So let me try to explain the best I can. The easiest one probably is patience. What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem with an impatient fellow? What's the problem with a person? What?
Impatient.
I know that. I mean, give me a better word. A better word for a condition. A condition of a person. We talked about it a moment ago.
Oh, aggressive.
Aggressive.
Stressed.
No. Aggressive, anger, and what's the other one called? My Rebbe called it. My Rebbe put aggressiveness and anger into a bottom line. You know what it is? It's called frustration. When people lash out, they are frustrated. So in order to deal with frustration, we have a way to do so in a great story that's sobering. Let's understand that, just like a drunken stupor is a guy who's not thinking, we're going to sober him up, so to speak, right? This person is also not thinking. A frustrated person doesn't think. What does a frustrated person do?
Act.
Acts out. Ah! Huh! Ah, blah, blah, right? And of course, there are different degrees of lashing out. There are excessive, not so excessive, very excessive. I mean, all kinds of people get angry, lose their temper, and so forth. So here's one of the ways you learn to manage it. My Rebbe had this example of what we call anger management. Watch this. It's hysterical. Hysterical. Watch this. I went to buy a new car, a new sports car. Maybe it's worth $40,000. And I'm in love with this car. And it's bright red and shiny. Great car. And I drive it off the showroom for the first time. And I get into the street and I'm feeling the joy and the pleasure of the car. And about maybe 6 blocks up is the freeway. And I can't wait to get on the freeway, because the moment I get on the freeway, I'm going to let it rip. I'm going to really have pleasure out of this car. And as I come right up to the freeway, to the entrance, right, the guy behind me bumps me. He hit my car. get my driver's license, get his driver's license. He hit me again. He just reared back. What's the matter with this guy? And guess what? As I'm ready to get out there and be ready to say, what are you, crazy? What the is the matter with you, right? I'm about to say that. The guy backs up and bumps me a third time. Ho, that's it. I'm out. I'm done. I'm finished. Where's that guy? Get out of here. Get that guy. Open the door. Open his window. Get out. Come on. And out steps a guy, 6'4", 250 pounds. And I look at him and say, pardon me, was I in your way? Forgive me for being. Now you see, what sobered you up? You were absolutely a lunatic. You were out of control. You wanted to kill the guy. You wanted to pulverize him. What stopped you? Reality of 6'4", 250. Point is that we don't realize that. But when we lose our tempers, right, we don't see the 6'4", 250-pound guy. If we did, we would stop him. Pardon me. Forget the car. This guy's gonna kill me. So the whole idea is that frustration. Now frustration, by the way, isn't always explosive. One of the more classic concepts of frustration is kids in school. Kids in school, they are sitting in a class, maybe the first 15 minutes of a 45-minute period, they're grasping the material, and then they get lost. And they can't recapture. And they are frustrated. So what do?
Stop listening.
They turn off. They didn't get upset, they didn't get excited, they didn't think that, but they lost out. And that's a frustration too. We are all afflicted with this. This is not just, now mentally, if a guy, really loses it to the point where he needs, let's say, what do we call these classes in anger management and stuff like that, that really is already a level where he's gone into a heavy, a large amount of mental, what's the word? Mental disability. He's disabled to that extent. But all of us have it on a smaller level. In other words, we all have this little frustration inside us. The only difference between us is what's our boiling point. Some guys have a larger boiling point, a smaller boiling point. I mean, if you're working at a job and your boss is berating you every day, day in and day out, I mean, how long can you take it for? How long can you take it? I mean, right? The abuse that people suffer, and then it's get out of the way. I'm gonna medicate you. Now, we're not talking about people who are premeditated with this. We're not talking about people that plan it out, cold-blooded, so to speak, and become violent on a cold-blooded level. That's not violence. We're talking about a violence where you're out of control. When you're out of control, so the brain's not operating. And all that you learned and all that you grew, all that you developed with all the rest of those 48 ways becomes meaningless. Because in one fell swoop, in one horrific mistake, you have torn your whole life apart. Your frustration was so deep, you hit the bottle and you lost your family. Just like that. Now you know that was a stupid thing to do. If you could do it again, you would never do that. So that's the whole idea of learning how to deal with frustration. Learn to be patient. Where do we learn patience from? From Hashem. Every time someone hurts you really deeply, think of how much you hurt Hashem and realize how much patience He has with you. How easy it is to be forgiven. Think. Now, here's one person nearly 98% of the time you will forgive. That's your child. You will never, I mean, you'll lose your temper,
and maybe, which you shouldn't, of course, punitively you should punish, not in anger. But even if you do lose your temper, tomorrow you love your kid, your child. I mean, whatever he does, whatever she does, it doesn't matter. You love your child. Hashem loves us. When we think of that, we have to think of that in terms of everybody. Yeah, the guy does abusive. Yeah, the guy did embarrass you in public and whatever, and did terrible things. But the answer is, learn that patience is the greater good. You could get it off your chest and wallop the guy, or scream back at the guy. But what'd it get you? Got you nothing. So in the end, you're a failure. You're a flop. And it wasn't even your fault. That's the worst part of it. You're a flop. So therefore, what does that teach you? That teaches you, you want to live as a success. You don't lose a flop. So therefore, by definition, you're going to learn that it doesn't pay. It's about as worthwhile to lose your temper as to lose your temper against a 6 foot 150-pound guy. Once you realize that, and you learn how to handle it, and you find a way. And that is how we respond to frustration. But understand, frustration is a mental disability. Because what does it do? It makes you no longer think clearly. And you've seen people who absolutely lose their temper, act crazy, go nuts. Maybe even at a ballpark, somebody goes crazy or whatever's got to be escorted out of the park, you know. You've seen people who really just lose it. And the opposite of cool, calm, and collected. And you realize that they're just they're abhorrent to society. And the guy is off. He's off, and that's called mentally disabled. All of us have it. What do we need to do? To learn how to control it. Learning how to control it is the first example is learn how to be patient. How do we be patient? First of all, recognize how bad the consequence will be the other way. Secondly, realize how much God is patient with us. And realize how much patience you have with your own child. And use these kind of moves, then all of a sudden you can handle this frustration level, and you will not be bedeviled by it. And even if you do get angry every once in a while, it won't be to the extent where you'll lose yourself and become mentally disabled. So on this level, therefore, we can score, we are mentally healthy. Right? We realize it's a disability. We realize it's an illness. We learn how to deal with it. Now, yes, you could go to anger management classes or go to a psychiatrist and he'll charge you $150 for it, but you know, we've got the Torah to teach us what to do. And if we implement it ourselves, we really don't need the, I hate to say this, my brother's a psychologist, but I'll put him out of business. But the truth is that if we learn how to control our situations, we can really be our own therapist, so to speak. Now, the next step here is a step called the Belev Tov. This is very heavy. Belev Tov is a good heart. A good heart is responsible, or a response to a serious mental illness, a serious mental health issue. How do I respond? I say, look at me. We are required to have a good heart. Now, here I have made a lot of wrong things, and made a lot of wrong decisions, and messed up here and messed up there, and I messed up. But I get up in the morning, look at the mirror and say, but I have a good heart. What is that responding to? That's responding to depression. People have valid reasons for being depressed. Valid reasons. I messed up here, I messed up there, I messed up here, I messed up there. And it's true, you are a mess up. Except for one little detail. essentially you're a good person. Essentially you have a good heart. And you have to know that. The ability to view yourself in a positive level, despite all the situations, is the greatest antidote to depression. Depression, of course, brings people to a real, total feeling of worthlessness, that I really have no value at all. Persons like that have every reason, and legitimate reason, to jump off a bridge. If you could get inside the mind of a person who has depression and feel that pain, you'd consider jumping off the bridge too. It's that painful. And I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure, in fact, that general psychology can't help it. You need medication, really. We say that the way to try and fight this off is to find the positiveness within you and to focus on that and to have that value of self-worth. Because the moment you do, then you'll begin to move out into society and find goodness in others. And the moment you find goodness in others, you will move forward and become successful. That has to be. Because at the end of the day, we said, yes, you got a head on your shoulders, and yes, you got some brains, but if you're not dealing with other people, moving forward with more knowledge that people have to offer you, then you're stymied, you go nowhere. You want to go somewhere? Move along with people. How are you going to do that? Find good in them. How do you find good in them? Find good in yourself. But I am no good! The answer is yeah, but you got to go. Life tough. And frankly, that's the real bottom line in the defining of a human being. No matter how messed up a guy is, no matter how failure a guy is, the reality is that if he has a ratzon hatoiv, if he has a will for good, nothing can stop him. The will for good is the concept that I'm looking to be good. I want good. The only person in the world that doesn't have this is a Russian. Is it an evil person? A Russian. You ever heard the word Russian before?
You said Russian.
I did too. I did it Russian.
I'm like,
Oh, wow.
That's bold.
Russia, no! Ever been?
Russia.
Russia.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So, listen, when I grew up in a communist war, we were in the Cold War, the communists were our enemies, I also thought Russia meant the Russian guy. And there are some good Russians in the world too. Not every Russia's a Russia. But a Russia is really a person who is just plain simple and bottom line evil. Right? Now, no matter how
Connection.
what,
Good connection.
no matter how many mistakes you've made, and maybe you're hard on yourself because you really think that you're worthless because you're making no contributions and because you really haven't done anything good. But the idea is you feel bad because you have a will to good. Otherwise you wouldn't feel bad. Rishoyim, Russia's big evil people, don't feel bad. They don't care. They have no lifetime. They have no good heart. Not Russians.
Yashayim.
Rishoyim do. Now, how do you get that? I mean, what's a Rasha? Person, he's amazing, just wants to cause evil. He wants to cause harm.
Okay.
And the truth is, every one of us has a little bit of that. And that's what we have to fight it off. You see, because just like every one of us has a boiling point of frustration, where you can lose it. Of course, mentally healthy people have a larger fuse, not such a short fuse. The same thing here. Most of us have for the most part, a positive self-image, And when we do something wrong and we did something that we're ashamed of or sad about, we have a guilty conscience or a complex about that, you know? That's because we have a good heart, because we want to do good. I just insulted this guy, tore this guy apart. It was a terrible thing to do. I lost it, whatever. So I feel bad about it. I feel bad about it within myself. I'm depressed. Right, but you're really sad because you really want to do good. Okay, make it up, apologize, this, that, and that. Because essentially speaking, you do want to do the right thing. Very few people in the world are Rasha'im to the extent where they just and do evil and enjoy evil. I mean, there are such people in the world. I mean, terrorists and evil people. I mean, just take pleasure in causing evil. But for the most part, most of us are not that way. Now, we will do some nasty things. And we will feel bad about it. Feeling bad about it is a good thing. Because feeling bad means you got a good heart. And therefore, you can take solace in that. But for those people that become overwhelmed with a lot of sadness, have you ever met people like that in your life? You ever seen someone who's really overwhelmed with moroseness and so on? And I tried to talk to just recently someone in our community, in fact, really, really depressed. In the midst of depression, actually, it's an interesting story. Her mother passed away, this woman. And she was having a lot of sadness over her mother's passing, but her own personal sadness almost overtook that. It was so bad. And I tried to explain to her, and we studied this idea of the leif tov, the good heart. And you'll find that for the most part, all people are that way. All people have good hearts. True, a good heart isn't sufficient. It's not enough to want to do good. At the end of the day, you got to do good. But at least you have that in your arsenal to help stop you from becoming more worthless, feeling worthless, and more depressed. But there's no doubt that the feeling of depression and the feeling of worthlessness is a major attack of the Yetzer Hara, of the evil inclination. He takes pleasure in seeing you being down, because he knows, the Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is created by God. God puts him here to do what? To tempt us so that we can overcome him and gain great reward. But he's a wily old fellow. And he knows that if he gets you depressed, you will become less productive than you were yesterday. Yesterday you were very productive. Therefore you went home very, very depressed. Tomorrow you're just as depressed, you become less productive, and it goes into a vicious downward spiral and a downward cycle. And he knows that, and he wants that to happen. Today you felt so bad that you did something wrong in front of Hashem. You wake up tomorrow morning and I don't want to die. How many people told me that? I once saw a guy who was really, really depressed. We were davening, told me, never believe this. We finished the davening, and as we walked out, he stayed alone back in the shul for a few seconds, and he got so upset that he gave the finger to Hashem. Yeah, he flipped off Hashem. Like this guy, I just finished the meeting. He was in such an absolute depression. Of course, he was blaming God for his depression instead of blaming himself. What he should have been able to do is look inside him and see the positivity. And I sat with him for a little bit, and I tried to explain to him that. So we all have moments of depression. Thank God they're not excessive to the point of disability, but the potential is always there Just like the potential frustration is there unless we control it. The control that is needed for depression is to have that sense of positivity that you are intentionally a good person. Maybe a flaw, but essentially you're a Ratzon HaTov. And because you have that Ratzon HaTov, therefore you should not be afraid of tomorrow. Because tomorrow you will use that same interest in goodness and do a whole lot better. Instead of becoming so wasted that you just feel that you won't get out of bed the next morning, so to speak. So that's depression. Now depression, of course, does require a more extensive discussion, but for now, that's a simple, basic idea we want to get across, that it is an issue. It's an issue on a major level to the point of disability, heavy disability. People can apply for disability with it. And fact is that all of us have a little bit of it. We need to learn to control it, and with that essential self-positivity. The third issue that will halt you in your tracks of success and progress at a mental level is called, the antidote to it is called Emunas Chachamim. Believe in the wise men. Listen to the scholars. Now, we've already learned about that up here when we talked about on the social level how to deal with a relationship with elders, with teachers, with mentors, with parents, with grandparents. We talked about that. But this is a little different. This is not where you will where you'll be there for them and show your appreciation. This is where you'll trust them. And that's even more than learning from them, even more than listening to them. You gotta trust them. Now, frankly, in the Jewish religion, the one group that stands out and excels in this area, probably more than any other, is Chabad. Chabad, they love their Rebbe, they revere their Rebbe, he's everything to them. Now, it may be a bit excessive, and we can argue that back and forth, but the reality is, when the Rebbe says something, they do it. And when they need advice, they go to the Rebbe. And that's a valuable lesson to learn. Because at the end of the day, you need a Rebbe. You need someone to help you, guide you. Because if you don't, then you will fall into a major mental health trap. And what is the mental health trap called? That listening to your Rebbe will be an antidote to? What is this trap? Huh?
Stupidity.
Well, stupidity isn't a mental health. Stupidity is just a guy who's not using his head. I mean, but there's, I mean, we're talking about something.
Pride.
Right, but there's a thing, something that ties you up. You see, your anger ties you up. That's why patience. You need to learn patience. Your depression tied you up. You can't get out of bed. This is something that's tying you up that only listening to your Rebbe will liberate you from. What's tying you up here? The answer is ego.
I think you know all the answers.
I know everything. Egocentricity will kill you. And it is a mental health issue. In terms of the fact that if people don't seek guidance, don't seek counsel, and in fact they are really have this. First of all, they're bound to make 1,000,001 mistakes. But in addition to that, it's the issue that, and of course you got to choose the right person too, right person for you, right person who you can connect with, who you feel a trust in, who you know cares about you. When I connected with Rabbi Weinberg, Noach Weinberg, bless his memory, I mean my whole life changed because I knew that he loved me. In fact, he used to say, "Zvi, you know I love you." I said, "Sure, Rebbe. Guess what? Hashem loves you 10 times more." But you knew he loved you. And you knew that in a sense that that he cared, and he often would tell you off. Now, there is no such thing as love when you don't tell off. It says, and we're going to learn that when it comes to emotion, about how to handle criticism. We're taught to love And my Rebbe had no compunction to tell me off. But he challenged me to be the best I could be. And then that's really what got me into listening to him. And we had our arguments, we had our disagreements and so forth, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's Rebbe. And I think that putting yourself in a submissive level really puts you into a health perspective. The idea of ego knows all the answers, doesn't seek advice. He's also the kind of person that becomes really socially repugnant. He wants to hang up so think so much of himself, you know. You think so much of yourself, you're so vain. I mean, you ever been at a party where you meet someone so vain that it's absolutely repulsive to want to be near the guy? So I told the story about I forget how in what conjecture, in conjunction with I told the story of the guy that goes to the party and he comes to he walks into the party a little late, goes to the bar, there's 10 people at the bar, and he thinks he's the most popular guy and the best joke teller around, so I tell him jokes all over the place. And slowly but surely, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, no one's left at the bar. And he still thinks he's the funniest guy in the world. Clue in. I mean, you're really clueless, you dummy. You're not a good joke teller. Doesn't mean you're a bad guy. It means you can't tell jokes. You do something else. But the point is that ego doesn't let you think that way. Ego thinks you're the best at everything. Ego doesn't let you, all the education you got, all the social connections you got, ego kills it all. Because you don't want to learn more, nor do you want to consult more. And so that's why it's so significant to learn how to deal with that problem. So we have an issue, we have a way to deal with it. It's called listen to your Rebbe. But the man more doesn't even trust your Rebbe, trust him. Why? Because he knows more than you, and he cares about you. He's got those two qualities. Now, frankly, you really haven't got much choice. Because if you don't have someone to consult with, you don't have someone to explore information with, and you're on your own, again, you're going to make a whole slew of mistakes. And in addition to that, you're also not going to make a whole lot of friends. And no one's going to want to connect with you. And slowly but surely, you can lose all the connections you possibly had to move forward. And all that you've built up until now comes to a screeching halt. No different than frustration, and no different than anger, or no different than depression. It's ego. Egocentricity. Now you should have a healthy ego. We just talked about that. Life time. You should feel good about yourself. But not to the egocentricity, to the extent where it's so central around yourself, there's nothing else in the world. You shut the whole world off. Shut a whole fountain of knowledge off. Whole fountain of information off. Whole opportunities off. Make decisions without your Rebbe? Not smart. Not smart. And so that's a third problem. Fourth problem dealt with here is called Kabbalat Yisurin. Accept suffering. Accept suffering. What is the problem that persons will not accept suffering? What's the problem? Not a physical one, a mental one. What's the mental problem here of a person who won't accept suffering?
You won't accept his lot?
Denial?
Denial, won't accept his lot. So here's the example. Personal example. I'm in the waiting room of a dentist. Now I hate the dentist. In my days, there wasn't all this newfangled stuff that gave you some pain relief, understand? He went at you with the drill, you know. Anyway, sitting in the dentist is when it was terrible those days. Anyway, I'm sitting here in the dentist office. I know my turn's coming next sooner or later, you know. And I hear from the dentist, from the office, from the waiting room, I hear, you hear it. And you get, what?
Fear.
Very well said. Fear. see, for the most part, is paranoia. It's not real. Because at the end of the day, when you do get into the office, when you do get there, whatever it is, you'll find out that for as painful as it is, it wasn't as painful as it was listening to it in the waiting room. Your imagination of the fear, your paranoia, your worry, your concern, your imagined fears, created fears, which really is off on a mental level, were really not real. So if we can learn to understand that, how do I accept suffering? I accept suffering, first of all, by saying, it ain't so bad. It could be worse. Yeah, it's painful. Yeah, it's this, yeah, it's that. But it's not the end of the world. There are a lot more worse things happen. Take a visit to the hospital one day. Visit these people that are truly suffering. And you get a perspective. God forbid you're in the hospital. But thank God you're on the way to recovery. So that idea of sensing that the suffering is not as bad as you make it out to be. It is manageable. That is responsive to, I can't do it. Can't do it. Now there are some that, now again, we all have a little bit of this. I, for $10,000, will not go on a roller coaster. And you write me a check today for $25,000. Well, maybe. I will not go on a roller coaster. I'm absolutely paranoid. Now, I go with my kids to the top of the Empire State Building in New York City, right? And the kids want to go over to the edge, you know. And I won't go. Come back. Kids are into this big way to go, right? And now I had the same thing in Masada. In Masada, they have what they call it's the same thing in Palm Springs.
The tram.
The tram. I got on it. Someone forced me on it. I hated it. So what did I do? And not to look down. What did I do? I went to the middle of the tram, right? Went far away from the windows, and I sat down on the floor. Everyone's standing, I'm sitting, because I didn't want to see what was.
Wow.
I'm totally fair. And here's the funny part about it. I get into an airplane, no problem.
That's good.
I don't know what it is. I look at the airport downstairs. I look down at the clouds, down at the ground, whatever it is. No problem.
It's too far.
It's too far, yeah. It's like.
But is that it?
It's like so extreme. That
Right. So I'm just comfortable right here, you know, like. So I had this amazing experience where I was on a plane in Israel, going to Israel, and I sit down in my seat, and I'm sitting next to a little girl who's crying, and she's crying pretty much because she wants to sit next to Ima. And Ima's standing over there, and for some reason, he's not sitting next to her. But I don't know why, but this is my seat. I mean, that's what I was assigned anyway. She says to me, I'm assigned to that seat over there. Would you be kind enough to switch with me so I can sit next to my daughter? So I said, well, yeah, I guess so. But you wouldn't mind would you sit next to women? Now, I'm not that extreme that I won't sit next to a woman. So I said, fine, I'll be glad to do it. Because I didn't realize who I was sitting next to. These women were absolutely nearly undressed. It was the worst experience. Really horrible. I'm like, oh my God. I didn't bargain on this. Anyway, so she said to me, we got into conversation, it's very sweet of you, how kind and thoughtful you are, and so forth and so on. I think it made her feel a little more positive towards religious people. And I said to her in conversation, how did you end up without a seat? She said, the truth is, I'm flying for free. Oh, how'd you do that? You want to know the truth? I said, yeah. She said, I'm the pilot's wife. So, hello. So I'm on a pilot. So 20 minutes later, the pilot comes out. And he says to me, well, that was a really wonderful thing. You did this, that, and that. And we got into conversation. And I said to him, you know, we're flying from LA to New York, San Francisco to New York, and then to Israel. We're not going to go straight across the globe because we're going over the polar route. Isn't that right? And he says, yeah, of course. And I said, does that mean to say, out of curiosity, that we're going to pass over the North Pole? He said, yeah. I said, whoa. Imagine, the North Pole. Who has ever seen the North Pole? So he said, would you like to see it? I said, sure, I'd love to see it. So he takes me over to the front seat of the first class. And I think he would have taken me in the cockpit, but I think it's forbidden to do that. He took me into the first class just about the time we went over the North Pole, and I saw it. It was really fascinating. Anyway, so it was a very, very nice experience, and it was an experience in this sense of I just got into this airplane mode because we're talking about airplanes. What was fascinating about the story, the PS to the story is 3 weeks later I'm flying back on El Al to Israel. The same pilot's there. And he recognized me, I didn't recognize him, the same pilot. You want to see the North Pole again? That's a great story. But anyway, the fear of heights is by me is paranoid. I have it. I can't fight it. There's no way. The fear of like a roller coaster, it's there. I can't find it. But if we have that same kind of fear, irrational fear, to basic things in life that we need to go through, we become paranoid, incapacitated, mentally ill, unable to function. You're afraid to get into a car and drive a car, and you're going to Uber it. There's no other way, right? So I think that what we're saying here is that people create fears of their own, and as long as you manage it, I guess it's okay. But if you can't manage it, it becomes really paranoid, that you're dysfunctional, and that's a real mental issue. How do you handle that? By learning to accept what we have and say, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. How do athletes suffer a major injury and go on playing for the rest of the game before they get treated? I mean, there's another 10 minutes left to get to the action. Football game, basketball game, whatever. How does the player continue to play? I mean, he's got to bring it, and at the end of the game, you find he's got a broken ankle. How'd you play on a broken ankle? You see that you can learn to say to yourself, it's not so bad. And when you do that, you see, then you're not gripped with the self-pity, and you're not gripped with the fear, and you're not gripped with being overwrought and crying, and you can live in this world, you can function with it. God forbid a person is blind, a person's in a wheelchair, and he learns to manage with it. Sometimes you see these people who are afflicted in such a powerful way, and guess what? They have the greatest attitude, and they're smiling and they're happy, and we wonder, how could it be? We had a fellow in our community who was blind for the last 10 years of his life. Young fellow. He was a student of mine, in fact. I don't think he made 70. And last 10 years of his life, he was blind. And he would go to shul every Shabbos. And he would, every day, in fact, he went to shul. And he would daven whatever he knew by heart. And whenever he didn't, he had someone help him. He never said he couldn't read. He said, I couldn't read. And somehow or another, we learn to adjust. Everybody knows, of course, that whenever you're afflicted with one sense lost, and the other senses get heightened in terms of you hear better, and so you smell better. And if, let's say, it's not your vision that's attacked, but it's your hearing, and you see better. I mean, Hashem helps you compensate. But that's the whole point. Have that trust in Hashem, that He helps you to compensate. That's the whole point of saying that it's not so bad. We can manage. I can continue to do my job. I can continue to work. I can continue to function. I can continue to maintain my family. I can continue to develop. I can continue to learn. I can't open a book. That's all right. I'll get a teacher who will work with me. And that's the way I'm being to deal with situations. Kabbalah Yisurim, to accept the disability that one might have, or the fear, or the suffering that one might have, is a powerful statement of mental health. The opposite deteriorates into serious, God forbid, mental disability, if it really deteriorates. After a while, you get afraid of nearly everything and anything. You're afraid of walking down the street. Oh my God, there's a mugger left to me. I don't know who's enabling. I need to double bolt my door with one lock here, one lock there, one lock there, because who knows going to break in the house. Yes, you should have normal precautions. And you should have a normal level of caution in your behavior, but not to the extent where you let it overcome you, or to the extent where you where you become gripped by the fear, and then no longer you're doing the things you want to do. You're afraid to do them. Oh yes, admittedly, I'm afraid of going on a roller coaster. But that's not inhibiting me. It's not that serious a problem. But if it wasn't, if I was afraid to get into a car, I couldn't go places. You see, and you know, I have one of our friends. He's afraid of flying, and his wife takes vacations alone. Kind of saying, when you want to take a vacation, you're flying. You're afraid of flying. And she's a vivacious woman. She wants to get out there and do things and stuff. Visit this and visit that. So I guess you could try hypnotism. And you could try, talking to a psychologist or whatever. But at the end of the day, you got to really say to yourself, whatever it is, it's not as bad as you think it is. You're making more out of it than it is. You make the mountain out of a molehill. You're sitting in the dentist's office, it's going to help you a whole lot less than you're thinking. So therefore, giving the thought process of fear is a thought process that can grip you. On the other hand, if you do it in a way in which you sense that, oh yes, it's a challenge, but it's not going to, it's not as bad as it sounds or feels. It's workable. You're going to manage. Then you can have control of it. When you have control of it, you can move, you can function, you can do, you can accomplish. Then you're not disabled. If you let it go over to much of an extent, then you're disabled. So admittedly, I'm disabled from riding a roller coaster. Of course, on the other hand, admittedly, it cost me $25,000. Because someone offered me the opportunity. But no one offered me the opportunity. But I would have serious reservations, I really would. So that's the issues of mental health. And I think that what we need to learn is that we need to work with it, be conscious of it, be aware of it, be aware that every one of us has it in smaller forms, and to keep it under control so that we continue to function properly, and to identify it. You're not using your head, you're using your ego. You're not using your head, you're afraid. You're not using your head, you lost it. You're frustrated, you lost your temper. You're not using your head because the reality is you're depressed. And it's not true. You're not that bad a guy. So the idea is that these things can harm us seriously. If we maintain control, we can move forward. Okay, we want to move forward. What's next? So next is next week. We'll hopefully have a whole gang of people here. Next week will be let's see, what have we done? We've done intellectual growth, social growth, educational growth, physical growth, mental growth. And you could argue that we're done. We've developed, grown, thought, got along, got an education, and besides, I've made control over my situations, physical and mental. The answer to this one is personal. To realize who I am and what I must become and what I can become. This personal issue takes all of what we learned up until now and puts it inside you and gets you to a whole new awareness of who you are. And that awareness is positive and negative. Realize, and I had to realize long ago that I was never going to play center field for the New York Yankees. I really wanted to play, I wanted to be it, but I had to realize that ain't gonna happen. And when I wanted to play basketball, and I was half a foot shorter than everybody else, it became apparent that I was gonna play basketball life, despite the fact that I played well. But at the same time, know who you can be. And realize that in most cases, we're all falling short of who we could really be, and what we can really do, and what can really do. Why are we falling short? Because we don't have enough confidence in ourselves. We don't really know who we are. Get in touch with who you are, find out, get a new personal acquaintance, and shake hands with yourself, and all of a sudden, you could really do this. This can happen. We'll learn that next week.
I was thinking, Rabbi, that